Sappi is a global producer of fine paper, and that is the operative terminology here. It's a chemical cellulose and has a customer base across more than 100 countries rather.
Right, so this one is interesting because it's a company in transition. The chemical cellulose is stuff that's used in all sorts of other stuff, like manufacturing that fabric that feels like it's been made out of a yacht, sail. People would be familiar with that kind of clothing wear. And it's a fairly significant player, although its market cap has declined significantly in recent decades.
24.9 billion rand. It's not profitable and has no dividend. Why I was pulling out the fine paper element is that appears to be the territory in this paper and packaging space that is under the most pressure.
Definitely, and I think we've been seeing that in Sappi for quite some time. We did see an uptick in their last quarter earnings of 2014 due to the fact that they came from a much lower base. We also see that there, when we look at the share price, they came from a low base where they actually moved sideways for probably about 4 years, and then we saw the uptick from earnings. They've also been focusing on selling off units that's not profitable and actually trying to make the best of the contracts that they do have with fine paper usage, users basically, and they have the element from the States. So there they haven't done so well, but at least that does offer like a slight hedge against the rand.
Turnaround, you mentioned the turnaround, and Mia has also indicated that they've divested of non-core and tried to streamline the operation. Is it going to work?
I think so, because it's probably true to say that the fine paper, like in the glossy magazines, is going to take longer to run off than some people think. But, I don't know, you might notice the Vogue magazines, they're still as fat as they always used to be. The advertisers are still there for one reason or another. I think they'll do well out of the chemical cellulose stuff, although they talk that up, it's still a fairly small part of earnings. And as Mia says, a bit of a recovery rand hedge story. But then there's a big debt pile. Huh? That's another thing worth noting, is that the CEO, Steve Binney, still has to deal with some pretty high debt levels, financed principally in Europe in the junk bond market. Although then again, that market has been very receptive. The rates payable there are not too high.
So it's a little forward, a little back in terms of the story
I've
that
traditionally been very negative on them. But and I'm still not hot, I would say. I'm still not hot, but I think one would have been wrong to be short the stock. Remember, we were short the stock a couple of times in our portfolio.
That's a big acknowledgement, Mia.
Yes, well, I'm also not hot on the stock. I think, it's probably the least exciting in the sector. It has the most headwinds. Even though it has a recovery story, it could do well, but it's not something that I would bet the bank on.
So what are you going, hot or not hot?
Not hot.
Paul?
Not hot.